Well, the Canadian flag, our maple leaf, turns 60 this Saturday, and Flag Day doesn't typically get the kind of attention that that day does. But amid U.S. tariff threats and taunts for Canada to become the 51st state, all of Canada's living former prime ministers have issued a joint statement. They are calling on Canadians to, quote, show the flag as never before. End quote. And joining us now is BC's own former Prime Minister, Kim Campbell, has been good enough to join us this morning. Good morning to you, Ms. Campbell.
Good morning.
How did this letter come about?
Well, it was Jean Chrétien's initiative. Of course, he was in government when the new flag was adopted 60 years ago, and I'm sure that Flag Day has always been important to him for that reason. I think he created Flag Day later when he became prime minister. So, as you may know, he's written some op-eds, and he's been very concerned about things that have been said south of the border, both with respect to Canada's future, but also with respect to tariffs. So I think he thought that this was a good opportunity for us to rally people around the flag. I mean, it's not that we think that this is going to be a magic solution to problems, but there's two reasons why I think it's important. Canadians are boycotting American goods, and they are expressing their concerns with what's happening in the United States, and it's getting attention there. I think that's important. So I think if Canada has a really exuberant and enthusiastic celebration of our Flag Day, celebrating the 60th anniversary, that will be an important signal both to the United States, but the rest of the world, how devoted we are to our country and how proud we are of our flag and the history that it represents. But the other thing is, I think a lot of people feel a little bit helpless. We're not really sure what to do. And by celebrating Flag Day, by finding ways of waving the flag and displaying the flag and talking about it, I think it can perhaps create a sense of solidarity and open some conversations among neighbors and give a little bit of kind of emotional release and comfort to people who are feeling frustrated about the current situation.
Do we generally think of Canada, though, as a flag-waving nation?
Well, that's interesting because, of course, we're not. We've always been a little bit suspicious of people who are kind of
Yeah.
waving and being superly jingoistic. And I think that's why, in a way, that what we would do would be even more significant because it's not our natural thing to do. But we do have a reason to celebrate on Saturday that it is the 60th anniversary of a new flag. And if we go back and think about what it took us to create that flag, there was a lot of controversy. It was very difficult. And then that is substituted for the flag that had been carried by our forces in two world wars, etc. But I think Canadians have come to love the flag and to adopt it. It's very identifiable. So just to stop and say, this is the symbol that around the world speaks of our country, and we're proud of our country. And we're a great democracy. We're one of the oldest democracies in the world. And this is an opportunity to stop and savor that and celebrate the symbol of all that we've created together. And I think what makes us such a great democracy is that we're proud of our history, but we're always trying to make things better. We're not afraid to look at our faults. We're not afraid to see how we could live better as a country, how we could do things better. It's not a jingoistic response. It's a really kind of democratic, affectionate response to our country and the symbol that represents it.
When former Prime Minister Stephen Harper launched his new history book called Flags of Canada, he reportedly said, I would be prepared to impoverish the country and not be annexed if that was the option we're facing. How many Canadians do you think agree with that?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to tell because I think it's very hard to make those comments unless there's an actual threat that's concrete. In the past, Canadians have been hugely brave, courageous, and generous in rising to threats to our country and to world peace. And I think about World War II. I mean, when the United States was still, hosting Nazi rallies in Madison Square Garden and German agents were operating freely, Canada was at war. And in fact, the border problem then was keeping German agents from coming into Canada to sabotage our war efforts. And young Canadian sailors and merchant mariners were braving the submarine wolf packs in the North Atlantic to take weapons and food to Britain and to Europe. And when the Germans declared war on the Soviet Union in mid-1941, and they became our allies, and our brave people were taking things in the Murmansk run. I mean, bravery, courage, and the ability to rise to the occasion has been so characteristic of our country. But we don't walk around looking for fights. We're lovers, not fighters.
Well,
And I think we all hope that these issues can be resolved. But if they can't, nobody should ever underestimate us. Nobody should think that because Canadians are very polite, that we are not capable of enormous resolve and toughness. We are, but we just don't throw it away on simple rhetoric. But the flag is an opportunity to remind ourselves of all of those times that we have stood up to be counted. And even now, Canadian firefighters and water bombers are down in California. We've been working. We are the best friends, the best neighbors a country could ever have, because when the chips are down, we are there. I think of that wonderful play, Come From Away, which talked
yes.
about miraculous things that a tiny little community in Gander, Newfoundland did after 9/11. We are tough, brave, resourceful, and good friends. And don't rile us, because you'll find that other side of our nature, aside from our incredible courtesy and kindness. So our flag reminds us of all the things that we've been, and we should be proud of that. I'm proud to be a Canadian. I'm proud of all the things that we've done.
But given all of that, I mean, what do you make of this continued repeated rhetoric from the President of the United States and even his underlings now? James Blair tweeted out, or whatever they call it on X, pleasant meeting with the premiers. To be clear, we never agreed that Canada would not be the 51st state. We only agreed to share Premier Eby's comments. I mean, where is this coming from, and what do we do about it?
Well, but you have to consider the source. It is so stupid. And what I find interesting is that Donald Trump, who says he's such a good deal maker, thinks that a country that's larger than his country would agree to join the United States as a single state. Get serious. If Canadians ever decided, and they decided freely of their own free will, that they would like to become part of the United States, well, we'd be 13 more states, 10 provinces and 3 territories, and that'd be 26 more senators. And, that might be a little bit more Canada than some Americans would want to have governing their country. So, be careful what you ask for, because you might find that it doesn't serve the purpose that you think is going to be served. But we are the best, and you don't need to play those silly games and talk about annexation, because Canada gives its best as a neighbor. We are a great trading partner. We sell our resources at very competitive prices to the Americans so we can have access to their market. It's a good deal. And if people don't like the deal we've got, let's negotiate another one. But we live up to the deal that we sign. So it's mind-boggling, and it's stupid. But I think Canadians, as I say, we're slow to anger, but there are some things that really annoy us. And I think on Saturday, celebrating our flag gives us an opportunity to make clear to ourselves and the rest of the world that we're not for sale. We are a wonderful country, and other American presidents have commented that the best thing that ever happened to America was having Canada north of the border, and that if anything, America needs more Canada, not less. So having a peaceful, prosperous democracy along your long northern border, that's the best news that any country could have. So enjoy it, United States, and Canada, don't be shy about who we are. Fly that flag.
In 1988, when you were elected as the Member of Parliament for Vancouver Centre, in an election where free trade and Canadian sovereignty were a central issue in that campaign, there was a very heated televised debate featuring the leaders, where Liberal leader John Turner warned Brian Mulroney what free trade would mean with the U.S. I just want you to have a listen to this from that debate.
We built a country, east and west and north. We built it on an infrastructure that deliberately resisted the continental pressure of the United States. For 120 years, we've done it. With one signature of a pen, you've reversed that, thrown us into the north-south influence of the United States, and will reduce us, I'm sure, to a colony of the United States, because when the economic levers go, the political independence is sure to follow.
So was John Turner right, Ms. Campbell?
No, and that isn't what happened. And that was why it was important to have the agreement. And it was a tough negotiation. There were things that people had said, oh, for sure, we're going to give away our health care. We're going to lose our control over our resources. No, we didn't. And Americans were tough negotiators, but they were honorable. And we created a deal. Over the Canadian history, Canadians, because we have this huge market south of the border, it's natural that our trade and economic activity has gone there. And whenever Canadian governments have tried to reorient our trade more to Britain, for example, or the Commonwealth, it hasn't really worked, because geographically, it's not optimal. It's farther to trade with those countries. It's not that we don't trade around the world. Of course we do. But the American market is a natural one. And so the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement was designed to clarify and guarantee Canada's access to that market, but on the basis of fair rules. And we have not become, a satellite of the United States. We have not lost our independence. We still remain the same cantankerous Canadians that we always were, with all of our own issues and all of our own challenges. But wanting to have that kind of economic fluidity where necessary, the just-in-time delivery. We're in the auto industry, the Canadian and American side, and of course that was the Auto Pact before the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement that guaranteed that fair sharing of an important industry. So. And when Donald Trump first became president, he was poo-pooing NAFTA because when the Mexicans came in, Canada insisted on being part of it so that we would be part of the big agreement. But we negotiated a new agreement. And, you negotiate the agreement and you sign it and then you live by it. You don't say, oh, we signed that agreement, but, the hell with it. We're just going to ignore it.
But is that not exactly what the President of the United States is doing right now?
Exactly. And that's why it's a non-starter.
That is Kim Campbell, former Canadian Prime Minister, former Member of Parliament for Vancouver Centre as well.